Welcome back to G Brands. I'm Andy Rowe, and I'm joined as usual by a regular All Blacks legend, Justin Marshall, and of course Wallabies rock star James O'Connor. And on the couch today, the world's best fullback. Should we say fullback?
Outside fullback.
We're saying fullback, aren't we? Will Jordan.
Contentious debate.
Welcome to the couch, mate.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to see you two are getting on so well and settled your beef.
It wasn't any beef. He just put me in my place pretty early.
You can't have Wallabies coming over to Christchurch and trying to run the show, can you? So
Hell no.
he's had a good first few weeks, but you just got to temper to make sure he's in the right spot. But no, it's good to have him here. We're enjoying him. A different dimension for our team, and it's been great.
Let's set the scene. What happened? Because we got your perspective. You, James, tried to jump into first receiver. And
I am playing 10. That sort of is my role.
Okay, all right. Don't get cocky, mate. So you're jumping into 10 at training.
No, I was in a game.
Oh, was it in
In a game, yeah.
Oh, they're even better.
Oh,
High stakes.
in public.
Public, yeah. Shamed in public.
Okay, talk me through it. Tell us what happened.
Well, we've heard James's version of it, so we want to hear Will's.
Probably started with that play before and halfway where you actually did your playmaking role and put me through a hole and went through, and then I think there was another ruck. We reloaded back to the short side. It's a bit of an opportunity. Probably got there about the same time and probably both saw the opportunity on the edge.
Yeah.
So I was sort of sitting there ready to go, ready to call the pass out the back from the forward. Jock told me to push. I just said, no, you go. And
What was the language you used, but?
not sure, I'm still working out the content of the show, but yeah, it was fairly.
You can give us the raw.
It was pretty aggressive. I'll put it that way. Pretty firm language around where I wanted him to go. He, in fairness, took it very well. Popped off my shoulder, got out the back, threw it to Dallas. He passed to Sevu and
Scored in the corner.
scored in the corner. So
If we hadn't have scored in that play, then I wouldn't have done it again, but like, fuck it. I'm not going to tell him what to do. You're seeing what he's doing on the field, so fair call. Take my medicine.
earn a bit of trust. It was one of those things. Obviously, Jock's running the cutter. Pop in here and there when required.
So just to be sure, you were playing 10, Jock,
Yeah.
and you got shifted out by Will Jordan.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, look, you run off me, bro. I'll put you through a hole. He's like, watch this. This is how you do it. And then we score in the corner.
The quote you remember from that is that all I've heard for the last few years is about the dual playmaker role and the 10 and 15s and how that works. And I've been on the wing, so you got to try and work your way back in there, and that playmaking position all helps out. So it's come from a few years of requirements there. So thanks for allowing me the opportunity to show my skill set in that space. I appreciate it.
What is the hierarchy? Like, you say this dual playmaker, the dual pivot, whatever you want to call it, because you're both a 10 and a 15, you see, so you're on the couch now together and your teammates. And the coach encourages it. So is it whoever's there first and then the other guy's got to piss off and adjust, or it's like, does the one with the 10 on his shirt actually, you know what, I am actually the first receiver because I've got 10. How does it roll?
No, it is. Like, it's whoever's there first. And I think like the cool thing is we're both seeing the same spaces and the same opportunities. I'm just used to getting my own way. But no, like honestly, I think it's awesome as well. Like when you got guys who can all ball play, who are seeing different gaps, who can go to the line and put people through holes. Like when you've got a few different guys doing that on the park, and then you add to that like layers as well. Like he's got his strengths, I've got mine. Some of the other boys have theirs. It's harder for defenses to read because you don't know, like maybe he'll skip out a little bit more, maybe I'll tuck in a little bit more, so it changes the pictures up well.
I think it's good, particularly with Davey there as well at 12. Like his skill set around being able to shift it and get to edges does make it quite interchangeable. You've still got a bit of speed on the edge, so if we do have to push you out and put a bit of footwork on, then it's no issue. But I think in terms of the playmaking thing, I think definitely your 10's running the cutter, and as a fullback, it's your job to relay comms into you about what's happening out wide and just try to ease a bit of burden off you because you've got a lot going on with driving the game around. So I think definitely, you try and have your 10 running most things, and as a 12 or a 15, you pop in here and there to, just change the picture and offer something different.
Well, what was your initial thoughts, Will, when how did you find out about Rab's signing? Like James O'Connor signs for the Crusaders. Do they tell the players in the squad, or do you find out in the media like everybody else? And then secondly, did you think, this is going to be interesting? Because you probably played against him, but had you played with him prior to him arriving at the Crusaders? Anywhere, like Barbarians or anything like that?
Nah, I hadn't. I obviously played against you a few times. I'm pretty tight with James Marshall, who I think was the mastermind of the whole thing. Had you on the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it went down, but I assume he planted a few seeds. So yeah, sort of
I heard that podcast, and I don't think it was James Marshall planting the seeds. Rabs was like fully talking about how he wanted to be a coach player. Yeah.
Well, fair enough. So yeah, heard about it, and probably towards the back end of the year, I was really excited about it. Didn't really know what to expect, to be fair. But definitely those first few weeks, I was on break over the Christmas period. You were in pre-season, and I live quite close to Rugby Park, so I'd pop in here and there, do my gym session, and see how the boys were going. And you and I ended up having sort of 30 to 45 minute chats in the team room about different shapes and different things that were going on. So from there, I realised it was going to be a great pickup, both on the field but off it as well. We've had some great connections, and particularly for our young boys at 10, Taha, Rivers and the likes. It's great for them. So yeah, couldn't be more impressed about his rugby IQ and the way he sees the game, and it's a great different dimension for us to have. We see it a little bit differently here in New Zealand than Aussie in some ways. So for us growing our game, it's been great.
How differently do you see it? Like, what are the key sort of differences in Australia and New Zealand rugby, do you think?
In terms of like the training sort of element, I feel like we train a lot more in New Zealand at the moment. Like we train a lot more on sort of turnover attack, kick counter. A lot of, I think the way sort of Super Rugby's gone, it's a quicker game at the moment. So it's a team, like we've spoken about, the team who's got the ball, still have to be in the right parts of the field. But in Australia, sort of we more focus on, I guess, set piece to set piece, like almost like playing a little bit more sort of chess. Well, like the detail of our starter plays will really like walk through and go on top of, and like we'll run through that a lot more. I guess the element of sort of slowing the game down is sort of maybe going out the window a little bit with Super at the moment. But I feel like probably my first takes were in New Zealand, like guys want to play flat at the line all the time, like consistently. They want to play flat. They want to put their skill set under pressure. Whereas in Oz, we play a little bit deeper, and it's almost like you have to push guys to hit gaps and stuff. It has to almost like be a pre-call. And I just think the speed of ruck ball, like guys are creating sort of off nothing. What's handy when you got guys like him over here who can just sort of beat guys one-on-one and then get us through the gain line. But those are probably the two biggest differences I've seen, is more control versus, playing off the cuff.
When we were talking about before the initial chat about you calling the shots and jumping into 10 and things like that, how much of a role do you play at fullback of actually driving the game? And because you always hear like 10 is the driver, right? 10's the person that's going to steer you around the park. But obviously, from what I've heard offline, you do a lot of the driving around the park.
I guess, yeah, that's something I've always enjoyed, has been the kind of tactical or strategic side of the game a little bit. So I've always involved being a part of that. I think particularly just way our team's structured at the moment, obviously Jock's come in with a lot of experience, but new to our game. And our 10s are obviously a bit younger, growing their game, and Taha's been great in that space over the last few weeks, and it's awesome to see him grow. But I guess with that, having been around for a few years, tried to take a little bit more ownership around, where we're going to head to, our preview, what that looks like, what our game plan is, and just, try offer some thoughts in that space to try help our 10s out. As I say, it's your 10's running the game, but I think the more information you can give him around what you're seeing, doing your preview work so you know what pictures are coming, then it's all good. And I think we've got a really good collaborative kind of mindset at the moment between the 10s. Like I say, Davey, Scooter, Scott Barrett at lock, around what the forwards are doing. So I think having collaboration is good, and ultimately gets you on the same page. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, I think, and it's going all right.
I think 100%. I think as well at 15, you've got the best vision almost of the field. So like 10 sort of engaged in closer to the ruck. Like if it's just that it's on the left side of the field, you're almost only most of the time looking at sort of this quarter, scanning and whatnot. But if you can get voice from someone on the outside who can actually set up a play, call a play for you, and you trust them, you can move the ball to all parts of the field. And sort of, I guess that's the best element of it, is when you have sort of 2 or 3 pivots on the field, very hard to defend when you can shift that ball and everyone can carry as well. So they're not just ball players, they're game breakers, they're carriers, they can create, they can conduct, all those sort of things.
And the expectation on you when it comes to communication, like how are you involved in every single play that's happening, and who are you talking to? Sorry, this is really nauseating chat, but it's quite.
I like it. This is good stuff. Yeah, I think you want to be communicating constantly. I think as a back three player, like you've just got to be talking, and that's probably a little bit of feedback which I found interesting from you is about how you thought that as a general rule in Aussie the outside backs were actually a little bit louder and did communicate a bit more. But I think it's hugely important. Like you say, you kind of sitting back from the game a little bit, so you've got a bit of a bigger picture look, I think. So yeah, after each play, you want to be feeding back in about what the D was doing, whether it's backfield space open or whatever. You want to feed back in, and from there, if it's Jock, if it's Taha, they can make the decision around what play they go to, around what the strategy was versus what we're seeing. So I think, yeah, you want to constantly be talking and feeding back for sure.
Well, it allows us as 10s as well then to take the ball to the line. So if we're not hearing anything, we're just plainly going off the pictures that we've seen maybe from a second or 2 seconds ago when we scanned here. But if we're constantly getting that information in our team's language as well, so it's a specific language, maybe we want to do this shape or this ball at the back or this particular play, that gives me the ability to go, okay, I know what he's seen if he's called that play, so this is what they require of me to get the ball into his hands or into our, our exciting back's hands.
Yeah. So it's massive, to hear exactly what's in players' mindset and what they can see and where they operate the best. And we're definitely not going to go into it in this pod because we're not throwing anybody under the bus. But it only reinforces about, putting guys in the right jerseys. Like at the end of the day, there's always debate, and we do switch around regularly this theory of trying to get all the best players on the field at the right time. But that's not sometimes conducive to the best team operating and functioning like it should do. You know what I mean? Like this constant revolving of players. What you want is the best players with best vision, best voice, and best way they can influence the game in the right jersey. Like as he said, from 15 he can see a fuckload more than what he can from the wing because you're lateral as a winger, so you're only seeing a certain portion of the field like you would as a 10, whereas fullback you can see where you want to come in, where weak defenders are, where you want to attack. So it only just reinforces to people out there listening that it's not just saying, he can only play one jersey. It's like, what is his best jersey? I'm not just talking Will, I'm talking any player, where he can have the maximum effect on the attack.
It's a different skill set. Like, it's like a high ball catch. Like for a winger, like the communication we need from them is very different to what I need from my 12 or from like my ball playing 15. Like to be able to read pictures of defense, like if they're fanning out wide, like the D's wide when they're filling the field, it's going to be a different play that we want to be able to pull them through and to get through the gaps there. Whereas from my wingers, I want to see like backfield space, like is their winger turning in? Is that bridge ball over the top on? Yeah. So it is very specific, like, and it's the skill to be able to communicate. Like it's definitely something that you got to practice and continuously, but I think the best players are talking throughout all the defending shapes and all attack. Everyone should be talking consistently.
Obviously, you've scored a lot of tries, and a lot of that has come from you sort of setting up the plays, or you coming up with the strategy behind putting the team or the pitches in the right places so that you can hit the right holes and things like that. What are the pitches that you're trying to create off the field when you're sitting down with the lads? Like, what are you wanting to see from those other guys to create that space for you?
I guess to start off, I'm always looking on the counter attack, like where opportunities might be. As a fullback, that's going to be one of your main tots way to get involved. So looking about where teams kick, how they chase, where's maybe the weak point and opportunities there. And then I think around our plays, like you're looking for mismatches. Probably my favourite thing to do is to kind of swing back to the short side of the long edge and try and get a mismatch on forwards. Moving laterally is probably my favourite way to get involved. So you look at it there. I've got that move that you talked about a couple of weeks ago, which we haven't brought out of the bag yet, but it's sitting there waiting to go. So we'll see what happens with that. Maybe next week against the Force it'll be brought in. But yeah, I think mismatches is the big one. Anytime you can get back against some forwards or some bigger bodies with a bit of deceptions, a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I think
the game hasn't changed, has it really? Bloody backs picking on forwards every time, trying to spot a front row. Carlos was a nightmare. That was he just used to go from deep, either side of the ruck, like as a 9, trying to find him.
Yeah,
because all he would do is last minute he'd just spot that tied, front rower in general, maybe a tight forward, as second defender, and because he didn't want a pillar, he wanted 2 or 3 defender, and he just go at pace, lateral at them.
Yeah.
And every time you see it coming, you're just thinking, oh, here we go.
But even that scrump, so the play you talked about where he passed it.
Yeah.
So that's Will's at the back there. That's his move where he'll spot, depending on where the backfield is and how they defend. Will sell something. He'll overcall with which way to go and tell him Nines to square up and hitting that gap.
Yeah.
So it's like it's almost spotting spaces and seeing what they're doing in D and manipulating shoulders there. So like, that's a big part of his game too.
I think a part of that, like without giving away too much of the strategy of it, like we had the midfield scrum before that where Kyle Preston kicked the 50-22 in the right corner. So you're kind of thinking to start off with, okay, their fullback's probably going to favour the right side a bit more with that. I think as well, having such a good scrum, you're kind of conscious of their loosies are probably going to have to hold. So Kyle's ability to get outside their flankers and create kind of a 4-on-3 or that on the left-hand side opens it up as well. So you're having to think about it. And yeah, I think for us, our scrum's such a weapon that it does give you opportunity to go backs on backs, which is a massive bonus in that space.
Kyle Preston, like that guy's just, I mean, he's been around for a couple of years, but this year he's been unbelievable, hasn't he?
Yeah, I went home and watched the game back again last night, and I almost think the way he's playing is a little bit like unappreciated at the moment. Like he obviously got that hat trick in round 1, which is great around his try scoring, but like he's really the only 9 in the world other than DuPont who kicks well off both feet. And like watching the accuracy of his kicking game last night, like it's off both feet, it's either long and out and around halfway, or it's contestable where our wingers are getting up or Davies coming through. Like it's a pretty special ability, and the way that able to relieve pressure from that for your own 22 after scoring points is massive. So couldn't be more impressed with the way he's going, really.
Oh, it's huge for a 10 as well, because that's the toughest kick is when you're stuck in a corner, they throw back 5-10 meters, and we've got pretty similar angle. If you can kick off both feet, and he's putting them out, past the 40 as well, which is huge. And I think another big thing, like just some of those support lines, just following the ball, like that's, I guess, we know our plays that we're going to do. So you sort of know, okay, it might break here, but through in phase shape, being that instinct of following the ball, this guy's got the ball, he might get through here, I'm going to take a little cheat line there. I feel like Nines in New Zealand do that really well, and KP's definitely doing it great.
The more confidence he gets, at that level, and with the players around him, the more knowledge you get of who you're working with. Like at the end of the day, you know where Ethan's going to run. Like it's just him, man. So you know that if you can bring someone in, he's going to hit that same hole, and he's going to hit it with aggression. Whereas maybe Christian Leo Willie he'll offer a little bit more and a bit of ball play, and he might tip it on. So you might just want to give it to him a little bit earlier. But the more he gets familiar, but you can see his understanding of knowing what's around him, and then you've got the core skill, like to be able to kick off both feet, really, really advantageous. Nothing wrong with his passing game, is there? He's just learning as he goes, which is great. Like he'll be sucking it all up, like from where he's come from to where he's got to now. Like he wouldn't have dreamed to be doing what he's doing and playing with the players he's playing with. He'll be thirsty for knowledge, So the more time he gets in that jersey, the fucking more the other 9s in the country have to worry. Because, he looks hungry as well. Yeah. Good story, didn't come through the system, really. And it's good and encouraging that still in New Zealand, regardless of your pathway, it doesn't have to be, going through the schools or system or under 20s, whatever it might be. If you're good enough, the system will find you somewhere, somehow. It is it's good about New Zealand that you can still find a club player from somewhere who can be an All Black or a Super Rugby player.
You speak about pathways. I mean, your pathway, let's have a look at that. You didn't make New Zealand schools, but you came through the Christchurch Boys High Academy, pretty much. Yeah. Mate, I remember going to because I was a Christ College boy, so we went along to the Boys High Christ College game, and which is the annual fixture in Christchurch. I don't know if you've heard about it, Rabs, but it's a big one here. And we turn up, and it's usually pretty tight. 80-0. Old mate doesn't pass the ball all game. Runs in 5 tries.
Yeah. You get on TV as a 17-year-old and start getting pretty excited about your own game. Sorry to the wingers that day. I was a bit greedy, but it was a top game. We had Josh Mackay, who's over in Scotland now playing for Glasgow. He was, just sort of the next 10 off the ranks at that point, coming through boys high. Like, speed was just immense. So, it was a pretty special day that day, that's for sure. But I guess my pathway for me, like, I only really started playing fullback in year 13. I was a bit of a late sort of bloomer growth-wise, so I was playing halfback up until...
Oh, well, that's where your knowledge of the game has come from. Yeah, I can tell. It's all making sense now.
That's where the chirping comes from.
Direction. It's amazing I didn't pass in year 13 after playing halfback up until year 12. I'm not sure
Dumb with passing. Fast enough.
I only moved to fullback in year 13. It was a bit of a late boomer in that space, and then played Canterbury 19s and then made New Zealand 20s, and that was probably where I got my biggest sort of development came in, being a bit of a semi-professional program for a couple of months.
Was that 2017?
2017, yeah.
We won the World Championship that year. Was that the last time we won it?
I think it might have been, it was 2017. We had a bit of a gun team. It was over in Georgia of all places. Great weather. Who'd we have? Like a Safo Moore, Braden Enor, Luke Jacobson, Dotton Papali'i. So we had a pretty good crew, and then went up to Tasman and played Mitre 10 rugby up there.
How did you end up there?
I actually got offered a deal by Waikato initially.
No!
Yeah,
Say it ain't so.
Yeah, Damien had obviously shot through into the AB, so they had a bit of a spot. And there'd been quite a few guys from Canterbury, like Damien and Talent Brown, who had gone through. So Crusaders kind of came to me. I wasn't signed with Crusaders at that point, but they came to me and said, like, we're not really that keen for you to go up there and kind of get maybe into the Chiefs sort of pathway. But there's good opportunities for you up in Tasman. Leon McDonald was the coach. Obviously a great fullback, so that was kind of enticing. And Canterbury was sort of full at the time, so they sort of didn't really offer me anything. We went up to Tassie and absolutely loved it. Like, great bunch of lads. Davey Havili, Mitch Hunt, Quinn Strange, those boys. Had some great fun on and off the field. Like, I was only 19 when I went up there, so it was good for me just growth-wise to get away from home and experience new things. And that probably taught me a lot. And then went into the Crusaders and had to fight pretty hard to get the jersey off Davey for a bit. We were going hammer and tongs and he was playing fullback, and we had a pretty funny relationship at that point. It was sort of like we were good mates, but then we get on the training field and it would get a bit tense, and I'd start one week and then when he'd start. So for my mental health, when he moved to 12, that was a bit of a bonus. But no, Davey's a great man, obviously. So
can we talk about Tasman for a bit? Leon McDonald's influence on you as a young fella. Obviously, he was a All Black fullback, a great All Black fullback, and he was your coach, right? Like, what sort of an impact did he have, and what did that look like?
He was just really good around mindset. Like, he was pretty uncompromising around his standards and the kind of core roles you needed from a fullback around high ball stuff, taking the line on hard. Like, I remember him playing, he used to just carry hard, like he'd run it back with intent. That was always something I tried to bring in, is that, like, when you catch ball in the full, like, chew the yards up. And I think, like, that just gives the team around you a bit of confidence around when you see someone carry back with a bit of intent around, okay, we're going to go back, we're going to have a carry here, set the first ruck, and it kind of sets your game. So that was one thing he always imparted on me was, intent around your carry.
Actually, there are similarities there. You can see it now that he's talking, right? Like the Leon McDonald, like, rushing back as soon as you catch the ball in the full, and you do a similar thing,
Yeah, I think just trying to be decisive around it. Like I say, I think it sends a good message to the team around, okay, we're going to go to attack. They can work hard to get back and get set. And then just, communicating. I actually had James Lowe playing outside me at that point, who was a superb communicator. He told me to fuck off and go to the edge a couple of times, and I was pretty happy to do that as a 19-year-old. But I learned a lot from him as well, J-Lo, like around communication and how important that was. And he's obviously had a great career now. He's gone to Ireland. But no, I think certainly getting around Leon, anytime you're around a, All Black great coming through, it was, huge for me.
As a world-class fullback, like, what does your personal training look like each week? Like, to try and get that edge. This is for a listener now that's, like, maybe trying to work their way up, or a wee club footballer that wants to know, what does Will Jordan do?
Yeah, I think, like, you got to understand your core roles. So, like, I think stuff around the high ball is really important. Like, you got to be able to win the high ball for your team.
So you're catching a lot of high ball.
Catching a lot of high balls, your kicking game. Like, you want to feel confident around your kicking game, being able to relieve pressure and kind of win those ping pong sort of battles. So those things I'm conscious of. Then you've got stuff around your own game. Like, for me, I know my running game is probably a key part of my game. So whether it's doing any kind of evasive work, doing some footwork stuff to try and prime yourself there, and then probably understanding where you're maybe not as strong for me around the physical side of the game. So I'll make sure I'm getting, a few decent collisions in throughout the week to kind of prime you, have you feel like you're going to play physically, is always good. So
Is that like wrestling with your mates, or is it like hitting a tackle bag?
just having the tackle bags, getting a few tough carries in, so you kind of just, queuing your mind up around having that bit of edge physically is kind of where I'm trying to go with it a bit. So just touching the flame there a little bit, so you get to Saturday and you're ready to run back with intent and you're around your carry. I don't know how you find it, Jock, around how you plan your week or what you're trying to look for or prime yourself up in.
I think very similar to what you've said as well. Like for me, that physical part of the game, it's not something I love to do. I don't mind carrying physically, but the defense side of it, like I'd rather someone else do that for me. But so yeah, making sure I do a couple like hard chops during the week. Usually on the Tuesday is when I'll start with the pads and then go just 3 each side where you putting those shoulders in, so you get into the game and like. Again, you just can't be giving them easy gain line, and especially everyone wants to run at the 10 as well. I run at 10, so I know anyone bigger than me is going to want to run at me. So it's like priming that physical part of the game, but then as well, like there's always areas of your game where you want to work on. Like maybe there's one kick that you're not doing as well, so I'll put a bit more time into it during that week, or maybe it will be, but still touching on like the core skills of my pass and knowing that that's my main job is to move the team around and get the best guys the ball. Now that I've sort of moved away from the speed of wing and fullback into 10, so you're touching on my pass and kick, and then just making sure my knowledge of our plays for that week and where I'm going to call them, what the pictures will look like for me to change it. That's the biggest part of my sort of training week. And probably haven't touched on it as much, but I've got to keep working on my speed, because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Do you have to do a lot of speed work?
I don't do a lot. I won't say I do a lot, but I got to touch on like some good, like at least once a week, get like a max acceleration and I'll probably say not a max sprint, but like 90%, do a couple of them just to make sure like my hammies, just in case like someone makes a break and I've got to chase them down. If it's a prop, maybe I'll chase them down. But like you got to just keep the body primed, because if again, like the footwork stuff, I've got to be doing some footwork during the week. Make sure.
What's the footwork stuff that you're doing?
So, like everyone's sort of stuff. So we've actually spoken about doing some stuff. Yeah. So my footwork stuff now is more. It's not so much beating defenders, but it's skipping to make people bite on me to hold other gaps, and if they don't, to be able to take it. But like, that's, I mean, there's so many different, like you can goose, you can double step. Like it's very hard without footage to show sort of stuff. But yeah, we've had these conversations about, what do you do if the fullback's coming at this angle, or okay, if you're flat-footed, what's the step you'd go to? And then like, so you practice it, but then in the game, just instincts take over. But if you've done the work for it, usually you'll pick the right option.
That was one thing I found challenging about playing wing a bit more, is like reactionary sort of footwork versus like one-on-one, where you're trying to, I guess, set them up around a bit of like a move, like
right, because you can see stuff coming from a while back with when you're attacking the line as a fullback, but as a wing, it's like, oh.
Yeah, I've always liked to, like, I think I'm a lot better when I'm just going off instinct, like I'm, like you say, hitting the line flat, and it's just like I'm just doing without even thinking. Like when I was on the wing and I'd get like a bridge and say,
what's a bridge?
Like over the long ball over the top, and you're getting it, and it's like you're sort of having to set something up a bit more. You got the sideline outside, you run with the ball in two hands, isn't really doing much because you got no one to pass to, which I sort of prefer to do in the middle. Like, then it's on you to create that bit of deception, and that's something that I wasn't like as good at. So I had to sort of try and simulate that a bit more about, okay, I'm taking him right, and then I'm maybe going left, and I'm back off the right again to try and set him up a bit more, as opposed to I'm getting it, he's coming, bang him off the right and through. Like, thinking about it is a bit more challenging for me. So it is like a little bit different in that moment around how you set up and where you get the ball and how you have to move and react to it.
Let's go back to your timeline. The All Blacks come calling. 2020? How did that process work?
It was a bit of a different year. Obviously, COVID and stuff was going on. So we just played the North versus South game in Wellington. So we were actually all, well, everyone who was sort of in the frame, like you had 60 guys probably were all like in camp. And you got a call in the morning from either Gilbert and Oka, if you had made it, to let you know what was going on, or from Fozzie if you hadn't made it around, why you hadn't made it or whatnot. So I was actually rooming with Finlay Christie at the time, and he got a call from Fozzie to say like he hadn't made it. So he was sort of a little bit, gutted as you would be. And then I got a call. I didn't have either of their numbers, so just had an unknown number come up. So I answer it, and I say hello, and I don't know what happened, but like there was just silence on the other end for like 10 seconds. So I'm just sort of sitting there in this room, like have I made the All Blacks or not?
Hello?
Like, it's like like that. Hey, like kind of fearful about who it's going to be, and then it ended up being Gilbert.
It's you, Fozzie.
Yeah. So like awful 10 seconds where you're just waiting for your childhood dream to come in and you're not sure what's going on. But yeah, it was Gilbert. I made it. But then like Finlay's there, he hasn't made it. So you're trying to not like, I'm just trying to like
jumping on your bed. Yeah.
I'm trying to downplay a little bit, like it's not that cool. Like inside, I'm like sort of fizzed up. But yeah, that happened, and then we only had like 6 games that year, so didn't play in the first couple. My debut actually went horribly. I don't know if you played in that game at Suncorp in 2020.
2020 at Suncorp.
You beat us.
The rain game. It was rain. Heaps of cards.
Heaps of cards, yeah. Off for Tuanfasa, he got red carded, I think.
Right at the end there.
Yeah, right at the end. I came on the wing with about 15 to go. Bodie kicked one long. I chased after it. Marika Korobetti, he put a bit of the footwork on, and I ended up getting my head in the wrong spot. Didn't get knocked out, but was like pretty wobbly on it. Got taken off for an HIA, so I only played like 2 minutes, and we lost. So, and the COVID rules in Brisbane meant that like we could literally only fly in from the airport, go to the ground, and then like get a bus, get a charter plane back. So like we finished the game, sat at Suncorp for like 2 hours, got a bus to the airport, got on our charter flight and got back to Sydney at like 5 a.m. So it was actually like a horrible night. As far as like All Black debuts go, like probably one of the worst ever. And then didn't play the next week. We actually lost to Argentina in that game at
In Croatia? No, in Sydney. Newcastle.
The first time ever. So like it was a bit of a chip.
You're like, fuck this.
Yeah. I'm like, this is not great. And then came back into the team for the last game in Newcastle. It was about 40 degrees. We beat Argentina like 38-0 or something. I got a couple of intercepts, and that sort of made it feel a bit better and a bit more exciting being part of the ABs. But no, obviously loved it. It was a cool team to be a part of, and as years have gone on, things got a little bit better in that first game. But special time being in amongst that group for the first time.
There was a lot of expectation on you as well, because like everyone was get this guy in the team from a long way out, especially Crusaders fans.
Hey, come on, mate. There's no such thing. We're all New Zealanders. We're New Zealanders.
One-eyed Cantabs, you gotta love them.
Did that have any impact on you whatsoever? Do you hear that noise at all?
I probably heard a little bit around, like luckily I was getting picked from, after 2020, I was sort of getting picked in the team most of the time, from 2021 onwards, on the wing, like, which I actually enjoyed. Like, I think it was a good way for me to come into international footy around playing the wing. You kind of just got to nail your role a bit more. You're a bit free to just sort of jam along, and I think that was actually quite a nice way to enter into it. I did definitely hear a bit of crowing around, like trying to get me into fullback and what that looked like, and for the most part managed to kind of blur that out pretty well. Probably towards...
I was just going to say, how does that affect your relationship with the people that are playing 15, like Bodie?
Perfectly fine. Like Bodie, Geordie, Damien, all like probably my best mates in the team. Even Davey, when he was playing fullback, it was the same thing. So as players, it doesn't really, didn't bother affect our relationship whatsoever. Like we're, playing golf or going beers or whatever. Like we were getting on like a house on fire, and realise it's just a thing that happens. The team gets picked, and it is what it is. But certainly didn't affect any relationships in the team like that.
Well, the coaches are picking the team, so you can do all you can do is do the best you can, and then they're going to pick who they want to pick.
Yeah. And you always find, like, even when I, like this year, last year, got a few more opportunities at fullback, and Bodie had been in there and been back and forth. Like, he was great around offering, his thoughts around his experience and what he's seen. So you definitely lean on those older guys, and guys are usually great around feeding that in. It's pretty important because your eyes do get opened up around, you might think you know everything, but then something happens, and you're quickly evolving, and the game changes, and you see it differently to other people. So I think that's something I've got a lot better about is having like more of a growth mindset and being a bit more open to not like necessarily feedback, but just a different way of seeing the game, and the international game kind of forces you to do that with playing different styles and stuff. So I think it's pretty important to have that mindset when you're coming through.
It's interesting because you obviously carve up at 15 at Super Rugby level, and then you go into the international environment, and you're talking about a growth mindset. You obviously don't know everything about playing 15 at international level. What are some of those key things that you kind of, I guess this is for both of you, like what are all the key differences from going into Test rugby at like a decision-making or outside back position?
Well, it's a completely different game, like especially this year. But like Super's very sort of like attack orientated, whereas sort of Test footy, like the way it's sort of moved in the past probably the past 10 years, it's very territory sort of based, pressure based, kick based. So it's like almost the team. It's the opposite to Super Rugby. Like the team without the ball usually sort of wins. So you want to put more kicks in, put them under pressure. 2 sort of 3-phase focus. Very like every now and again, obviously you get some good counter front foot ball and can spin the ball wide. But I think just every player's a little bit better on the field. The defense is a little bit better organized, and just the margin for error is so much smaller. So I think that's probably the big thing in that backfield as well. Like you can't give any space. Like you got to be in the right spot all the time to catch a high ball or stop a ball from, going out and them getting a good line out and putting pressure on. And even how you come and inject yourself into the line's a little bit different.
I'd completely agree. Like I just think the game's just magnified. Like it's such small margins, and like a little error here where maybe you push a pass in Super Rugby, like you don't get punished for, versus you're playing the Springboks at Ellis Park, you try to run it from your 22, you get caught, all of a sudden you get penalised into the corner 5 metre maul, you haven't stopped their full pack. Like it's just smaller margins, and any mistake or your decisions are just closely looked at and hugely consequential. So that's what I've found from it. It's just you just got to be nailing each moment. Like it's just the game's 80 moments, small moments, just stacking positives together is what gets you there. Like it's just you can't afford to take players off, or you rest here, then someone hooks it back into the corner, then you're stuck. It's a wet, dewy night in the Northern Hemisphere. Like it's it's just tough conditions. Crowds are a lot louder. There's a lot more of that sort of home field advantage, I think. So momentum's huge, and trying to get that back and manage that's critically important, and your emotions within that as well.
I always felt it was time as well. You had less time. Like people often ask you, don't they? And they say, what is that difference, and what is the step up? Everyone talks about the step up, and you can use the words intensity and physicality and all that, because it is all upper level. And they go, but why? And to try and explain it, it's like, well, if you're playing, say, Super Rugby as a competition, you're playing probably against the best player in the franchise area, and he's going to be good, But when you're playing international rugby, you're playing against the best player in the country, and he's 100% the best player in that jersey. So if you're playing against a 100% player who's a 7, if you don't get your ball placement right and everything's to perfection, there won't be an 80% chance that guy's going to turn it over. There's a 100% chance he's going to, because those players are just at the absolute best of skill set, and they're not an 80%er in that jersey. They're a 100%er. So everyone is doing 100% better than the 80%er. So they're 20% up, and if you're slightly off, they'll hurt you because they're so good at what they do. And whether it's defence, whether it's attack, whether it's whatever, if you give somebody, who's a world-class finisher too much space, they'll take it every fucking time. It's like I gave him half a metre and he took it. And they're just that good, And so you got to be on, don't you?
It's those margins. Like you miss-hit one kick and you're punished. Like you drop one high ball or someone gets in and taps it, they regather the ball, pin a corner. Like that's just pressure. Like it's such a squeeze sort of game.
And I think like the squeeze, you just feel mentally like you can try and prepare for it. You meet up with the mental skills coach and you kind of know that pressure is going to come. But it's only when you actually get in that moment. Maybe for me, like you've shelled 2 high balls, you see them setting up at a ruck to put another one up. You're the only one back there, 30 metres back. You got whoever coming through. There's 80,000 sort of on top of you. It's wet nights, cold, ball slippery. Like that's when you've got to be pretty switched on mentally. And I think that's where experience becomes like critically important. Like you see a little bit around, guys might look at Super Rugby form and be like, oh, why is this guy getting picked? But when you come to it, like guys with experience, like Sam Kane, a great example for us this year, like last year, coming in 95 tests, just battle hardened, like just the amount of steadiness that gives a team in a test arena. Like you just can't, you can't buy experience, but like it's just critically important at that level to have guys in key positions who have been there before, can be calm, deliver clear messages. And that's not to say Super Rugby or franchise rugby's not like that. You still get those moments, and you get more open play and it's a bit more exciting what we've seen. It's just a different game, and it's good to be able to offer that contrast between sometimes the grind of test footy and the free-flowing, high-scoring nature of Super. I guess it caters to different people and how they like to watch it.
Then you talk about that type of intensity and you go up a level and you get to massive games like, obviously, we're all wanting Rabs and in fact, he's already in the Wallabies as far as G brands are concerned. And those test matches come around, like you're very lucky as a player to play in them. They're massive, 3 of them, and the intensity is just like do or die, similar to World Cups. Like, mate, that quarterfinal against Ireland, that must have to be one of the most intense test matches ever played. How was it?
Yeah, it was crazy. Like looking at the draw from when it was done, I think 2 years out, like you sort of knew that those quarterfinals, whether it was going to be us versus France or versus Ireland or the Springboks as well, like it was going to be, all go in a huge game. We'd had a great history against Ireland probably 2 years before that where they'd had the wood on us a little bit. So they were flying number 1 in the world. So we knew it was going to be a massive game, and sort of everything we'd done strategy-wise that year, like rugby championship, how we were playing was like dictated by how he wanted to play against Ireland. So give the coaching staff, Fozzie, Joe Schmidt, Stormy Scott McLeod, who was doing the defence, a bit of credit around how they set us up for that, because we went from being quite an aggressive like up and line speed team where they were just picking us off with their short passing, Sexton wrapping around, and we just couldn't defend it. We went from that to more of a push, connected, give them a 5 metre bend but not let them breach us.
So that's interesting.
It took a while, like when we first came to camp, it took a little while for everyone to sort of buy into it. Like it was quite a big change right before the World Cup. I ended up buying into it, and it was massively critical in that game. Like I think we leaked 21 points or whatever, but for the most part we were reasonably resolute around our defensive game. Summed up by those last 37 phases or however many it was. For the probably first 25 of that, felt pretty good. Like they were around halfway, not really going anywhere too far. You're sort of feeling pretty confident about what's going on. And then like 25 to 32, they're probably around maybe 30 out. Yeah. And like you've made about 4 tackles each. And like you're thinking, okay, this is starting to get a little bit untidy. Then you get to like 34 to 37. I think Bundy made like a bit of a half breach. And now they're like 10 out. Yeah. They're like, this is like, someone can do something. A little bit of stress came in at that point. And then good old Sammy Whitelock got on the ball. Great moment for him. Probably his, just about a signature career moment. It had been a big few weeks for him, passing Richie's record, getting to 150. So great way for him to do it. It was quite cool. Where the game finished in the 22 was like right in front of where all our families were sitting in the stand. So you had a lot of Kiwi support there right in that corner. So just a great moment. Tight game, World Cup. So certainly a special memory.
You didn't mention that try at all that you scored. Shall we? Let's unpick that.
The try, yeah.
Whose move was it? Talk us through the whole situation.
We'll be here for half an hour.
Yeah, we'd had a bit of success in the year before with like just bringing the winger inside, sort of the pod off 10. Or just the pod itself. Like off there, we got after a couple of times with it. Caleb went through against Aussie at Marvel Stadium the year before, so it was kind of always in our repertoire. And they had Dan Sheehan, I think, who was at hooker, who was at the tail, and he was just like sprinting out at the first 5, forcing an early pass, and it kind of allows their defence to sort of get wider and kind of stops their player, suffocate you a little bit. So the kind of plan was to try and have either if he came out, then it opened up a bit of space on the inside where their back prop was kind of defending, so you get a bit of a mismatch there. Or, just be in that channel so at least hold him, and then, you'd be able to get to the middle of the field more and then set your play up. So, just set up as a routine kind of exit play. The initial plan was to hit me on the inside, but as we discussed, like he ended up holding, and then I think it was Van der Fleer and Sexton were obviously expecting Sheehan to get to Richie, so then they were pushing out a bit wider, and then Rich, as he does well, sort of holds the ball up, manipulated the defence. He went through, and then it worked out perfectly that then you're sort of in there in a perfect support line. Almost worked out better than passing it inside to me, because then he'd probably get tackled and then you're going through alone. Like, actually, it worked out perfectly. So he goes through, and then, from that point, I'm just sort of, screaming for it on the outside, really, and does a good job to hold the defence and score in the corner. And then probably an underrated part of that was Geordie, I think it was, kicking the conversion, because that put it out to 8 points as opposed to 6. You know, when you've got that 8-point buffer, it does allow you to just be a little bit more comfortable. You got that 2 score sort of difference. So that was probably an underrated part of it. But credit to, I don't know if it was Fozzie or Joe, whoever came out with it, but paid dividend at a pretty key point.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Will, mate. Appreciate it.
Appreciate a good chat.
James,
Colin.
appreciate it, mate.
As always,
Always a
total
pleasure.
pro, mate. Total
Always
pro.
a
On
pleasure.
time as well, you were.
Hey,
Hey?
carpooling. Save the
Marshy.
environment.
Yeah.
Marshy, great work, mate.
Thanks, mate. It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Thank you very much for watching or listening. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss those interviews that are coming up in the coming weeks.